Hey everyone, Wellfish here, H5. This video is going to be about the MiG-21SMT. Although, it's not going to be your standard review. You see, everyone else on YouTube has already talked about the MiG-21SMT, and even I myself have already made a video about the MiG-21MF, which essentially is the same plane as the MiG-21SMT, except slightly worse. Essentially what I'm getting at is that I assume that most people watching this video already know that the MiG-21SMT is a great plane. Not only does it have great maneuverability and a very good power plant, but it also has flares as well as fairly good weapons. Of course, there is one caveat this plane has, and that's the fact that it bleeds speed like crazy, but because this plane also has an extremely high thrust-to-weight ratio, that speed bleed can be quickly counteracted with the extreme acceleration that this plane has. And as a result, you end up with a plane that is fairly unique in terms of flight characteristics, which translates into the fact that the MiG-21SMT is not only a very competitive dogfighter, but it's also just one of the most fun to play jets because it doesn't feel like most other aircraft in War Thunder. However, like I said, if you watched any other review about any of the other MiG-21s, or let alone a review about the MiG-21MF or the SMT, then you already know this. Whatever I just said, it's not necessarily something new. But what if I told you that this doesn't matter? What if I told you that every other review about the MiG-21SMT that's 2 months old is essentially completely irrelevant? Well, that'd be a bit of an over-exaggeration, although there is some truth to that statement. Every time I make a review about an aircraft in War Thunder, I first play that aircraft quite extensively. For example, for the Hunter video, I played the Hunter more than 100 matches before I even started recording the voiceover / writing the script for that video. And, well, I did the same thing for this video, which essentially means that I sat down and I played quite a couple of matches in the MiG-21SMT before I even started taking notes about what I wanted to say. And whilst playing the MiG-21SMT for this video, I realized that my experience playing the MiG-21SMT is vastly different from my experience playing the MiG-21MF 2 months ago. Now don't get me wrong, I was actually expecting that these two jets wouldn't play the same way. After all, the MiG-21SMT has a 10% higher thrust-to-weight ratio than the MiG-21MF. And of course, because these jets lose a ton of energy when turning, that extra engine power is very, very helpful when you're trying to gain that energy back after you've been in a dogfight. Essentially, this jet is supposed to be a much better version of the MiG-21MF. And yet, I had more fun playing the MiG-21MF 3 months ago than I enjoyed playing the MiG-21SMT for this video. And that kind of caught me off guard because, while I know the game has changed quite a bit over 3 months, but what's interesting is that none of the changes that were made in those 3 months were changes that were very big in and of their own right. The MiG-21SMT wasn't power crept, it wasn't feature crept, but instead, small incremental changes essentially completely changed the way this jet feels. So instead of looking at this jet and just reviewing it like I would be reviewing any other plane, I thought it'd be interesting to look at some gameplay and to explain the decisions I am making, and more importantly, why they are different from the choices that I'd be making in this jet about 3 months ago. That's a bit vague, I get that, but trust me, I think that once we start looking at some gameplay, you'll fairly quickly understand what I'm trying to do. The match you're seeing in the background is me playing the MiG-21SMT in a partial down tier. Essentially, this is a 9.7 to 10.7 match, and as you might have noticed, I am rapidly closing in on a Harrier GR1. And what you'll see is I actually wait for quite a long time before I end up firing my R60. Why? Well, because the R60 is a very close-range air-to-air missile nowadays. It used to be quite alright at something like 3 kilometers, but due to the recent missile nerf, you really have to get close to the enemy before you can fire this missile and reliably get it to hit. It's not a bad missile by any stretch of the imagination, it's just that out of all the missiles in the game, the R60s were some of the worst affected by these missile drag changes. And as a result, these missiles currently feel like a shell of their former glory. They're still good, you can still get plenty of air kills using the current R60, but they just don't feel as satisfying as they once were. Anyway, that's enough rambling about the R60. Let's take another look at what's going on in the background. As you can see, I'm trying to take some pot shots at that Hunter whilst he's completely hidden in the clouds, and of course I miss, and that's totally because I couldn't see him, not because I'm just very bad at aiming. Regardless though, I am right on this guy's 6, and he's effectively dead in the water. This Hunter doesn't get any flares, but instead of trying to missile him from this close by, I decide to shoot him instead because, well, I want to be honorable. What? What? Do we count that? Is that like my second kill? You know what? Forget it. The hunter, I guess, had a bit of a prefrontal cortex malfunction and he hit some sand. I don't know. Maybe he was just so impressed with my El Bozo squadron tag that he completely forgot how to play the game. By the way, if you want to join my squadron, be sure to join the Discord server linked in the description. Anyway, as you can see, I'm rapidly approaching this F5C from behind, firing R60, but this guy actually pays attention and manages to flare it. Crazy, right? An F5C player that knew his plane has countermeasures. However, what he didn't know is that you shouldn't stall yourself out right in front of a MiG-21SMT, because as you can see, if you do that, you lose one of your wings. Now, I know I'm trash talking here, but the reality is that when I was playing this match, I was shitting my pants at this moment. And that's because I essentially dumped all of my energy trying to dogfight with these enemies. Now that isn't very bad in and of itself, but it does mean I am now a very slow and therefore a very juicy target for any enemy that just wants to swoop into this furball and get a nice and easy kill. Luckily though, that doesn't happen, and instead I get to get another free R60 kill by blasting this F5C. He crashes into the ground and he'll end up being yet another kill. And then you can see that I'm basically right behind this AV-8, and the AV-8 can literally do nothing except somehow survive a salvo of 23 shells. Of course, he does crash right after that, but if you watch the replay, you'll see that he doesn't crash because I shot him, but rather he crashes because his tail gets shot off by the SPDA. Great change to the map design guide. In any case though, I want to talk about the fact that I just full-on blasted that AV-8 and yet he was completely fine. The thing is that the MiG-21SMT's gun is a phenomenal weapon. Or at least, that's what I would have told you if I made this video 3 months ago. Nowadays, however, the GSH-23 is honestly one of the worst guns in the entire game. Okay, that's perhaps a bit harsh, but I'm just a bit frustrated with this gun because, well, I used to really like it. It was essentially a very high risk but also high reward weapon because it was very hard to aim, but then once you did manage to hit a couple of shells into the enemy's airframe, they would hit like a truck, and that means that if you shot someone, they died basically instantly. Again, high risk, high reward. Nowadays though, well, these shells no longer do any damage whatsoever, so instead of it being high risk, high reward, it's just high risk and literally no reward at all. I fumbled ahead on with the J35XS, and after that I find myself in an honestly rather terrible position. I'm completely out of missiles, I'm low on cannon ammo, and I'm fairly low on fuel. If this was one of the older, smaller maps, I wouldn't care so much, I would totally still have enough fuel to hunt down that J35, but because it takes such a long time to get back to base on maps like these, I decide that it's just time to start cruising RTB to base. However, I notice that there's an A10 who's killing some ground targets, and I see that he gets spotted right next to me. And because he's essentially on my way back to base, well, he might as well turn into a free kill because I like killing A-10s. They've been murdering 9.0 aircraft for far too long, so it's time to get back at this little bugger. While I'm cruising over there though, I quickly want to continue my ramble about the gun on this plane currently feeling very bad. Why does it feel bad? Well, because of Real Shatter, and I'm fairly confident you've probably already heard of Real Shatter because, well, Real Shatter has been kind of a real shitter experience, as it has made every gun that's affected by Real Shatter very unreliable in terms of damage output. You'll see me pump 40 rounds into this A10 and all it does is set him on fire. Now sure, I get the kill in this case, but that's still rather sad because having to pump 40 shells into an A10 before it dies is honestly just rather embarrassing when you compare it to the 8 shells that it used to take before. Sure, you can definitely still get gun kills using the GSH-23, however, it just no longer feels as rewarding as it once used to, and as a result, gunfighting with the MiG-21SMT just isn't as fun as it used to be. And with that said, well, I guess I'm starting to get close to the end of the match here. There's an F5C right behind me, and I'm just gonna use my last bit of fuel to kick on the afterburner and run away from him. I'm much faster than he is, and as soon as he realizes that there's nothing he can do to catch me, he breaks off and he goes to do whatever well, he wants to go do. And with that, this match is essentially over. Why is it over? Because by the time that I've flown back to base on this massive map, well, there's really nothing left for me to do. Essentially what happens is I'm going to land, I'm going to rearm, I'm going to take back off again, and by the time I'm back in the air, this match is going to be won because the enemy team will run out of tickets. So with that, I want to start concluding this video. I know it's a bit of a weird format. I didn't really tell you that much about the plane. I'm more just kind of rambled/ranted about why it's now less good than it once used to be. But I guess the take-home message from this video is simply, War Thunder is a dynamic game. Changes are made all the time, and I don't mean shitty economy changes, I'm talking about gameplay changes. The missile nerf, real shatter, bigger maps, all these things individually influence how you play a certain aircraft. And of course, as a result, a plane that's fun today might not be so much fun in 3 months from now. I assume you already know this, but I just felt like making a video about it, because when I started playing this game about 10 years ago now, this is something that took me a very long time to realize. In any case, guys, this video has been a bit all over the place. I'm sorry about that. I hope it was still somewhat enjoyable to watch. I hope it was somewhat interesting. And, well, more edited videos will return in the future. Don't worry about it. It's just that right now, well, I'm kind of in the middle of my exams, my final exams for my bachelor's. Thank you for watching, lads, and see you next time.